Chapter 1. The Dying Star and the Dying Woman. The orbital city station Caravelis hung against the curve of a dying star, its light bleeding crimson through the segmented windows of the docking ring. The station never slept. Neon glyphs flickered in half a dozen languages. Vendors shouted above the hiss of steam vents, and alien perfumes mingled with the ozone tang of recycled air. Amid the chaos of barter and laughter, the hum of plasma engines thrummed beneath Kael Donovan's boots, a low reminder that survival here was always mechanical, fragile. Kael adjusted the strap of his tool satchel as he stepped out of the maintenance corridor and into the grand atrium. He had finished patching a corroded coolant line for a merchant freighter, dirty, thankless work that smelled of burned copper, but enough to buy another week of lodging in a capsule block. He was about to disappear into the crowd when a sudden ripple of sound caught him. Gasps, whispers. At the heart of the atrium, where alien nobles often paraded their wealth in silks that shimmered like liquid glass, a woman had collapsed. Her body lay fragile against the polished obsidian floor, bioluminescent veins flickering like a lantern sputtering in the wind. Serenya Vera. Even Kael, an outsider, recognized the name. One of the Vera line, the luminary caste. Two attendants rushed her aside, their translucent robes whispering like wings. A medic drone unfolded, thin metal arms humming, but the alien doctors shook their heads. She's fading. One hissed in their fluid tongue, though Kael caught the words through the translator chip embedded in his ear. The kidneys are crystallizing. No donor in the sector. No cure. Serenya's eyelids fluttered, her lips moving in a soundless plea. The glow that defined her people, a gentle sapphire radiance along their cheekbones and temples, was guttering, dimming. Around them, the crowd pulled back, eyes averted. To die publicly, to falter in the presence of strangers, was a humiliation among her kind. Kael felt something twist in his chest. He should have walked on. Humans were barely tolerated here, pitted for their crude biology and short lives. But his boots stayed rooted. "Wait," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Isn't there anything you can do?" The nearest medic sneered, mandibles clicking. "You would not understand. Her organs calcify. Only a living transplant from her kind could sustain her. None are compatible. Her fate is sealed." Kael's jaw tightened. He thought of the way her hand twitched against the cold floor, fighting for breath no one expected her to have. Humans weren't supposed to get involved in alien affairs. And yet, compatible, Kael muttered, more to himself than anyone. What about human tissue? Our kidneys filter the same way. I've seen the charts. The medics recoiled, scandal flickering across their bioluminescent faces. Crude, barbaric. You would slice away a piece of your own body? For her? Kael's gaze didn't waver. He dropped to a knee beside Serenya, her eyes glassy but searching. Her fingers brushed against his wrist, weak, as though anchoring herself to his presence. "Yeah," Kael whispered, more certain than he expected. For her. Above them, the crimson star pulsed, its dying light spilling across the station walls, as if echoing the fragile heartbeat of the woman lying between life and death. Chapter 2. A human organ, a dangerous choice. The surgery ward at Caravelis was nothing like the maintenance bays Kael knew. Here, the walls gleamed with sterile white alloy, pulsing softly with bioluminescent strips that shifted color with the patient's vitals. Alien medics in flowing robes moved in orchestrated silence, their delicate hands flickering across holographic displays that projected Serenya's failing organs in translucent layers. Her kidneys, once smooth and radiant like polished crystal, had become jagged shards of calcified tissue. Kael stood apart, the only human in the room. His boots squeaked faintly against the polished floor, his satchel of tools still slung over his shoulder like he'd stumbled into the wrong place. The medics avoided his gaze, speaking in quick streams of their liquid tongue before the translator chip filtered it into meaning. "It is useless," one said coldly, their glow dimming to a shade of resignation. "She will be gone before the next rotation. The Vera bloodline will close, as it was fated." Kael stepped closer, his pulse thudding louder than the hum of the gravity stabilizers. What if you use mine?" The room stilled, dozens of alien eyes, shimmering with inner light, turned toward him as though he had spat blasphemy. "Yours?" the lead medic said, mandibles clicking in disgust. "Human tissue is primitive, unrefined. It would taint her physiology. Even if compatibility exists on the lowest tier, the act is unthinkable. You would cut away your own organ willingly." Kael's throat tightened, but he forced his voice steady. "I only need one to live. She needs one to survive. That's math I can live with." The silence that followed was thicker than vacuum. Serenya stirred on the med table, her glow faint as starlight in fog. Her eyes opened a sliver, finding Kael's across the room. For a heartbeat, her lips curved, not a smile, but an acknowledgement, a tether. The medic's glow flickered with something between disbelief and reluctant calculation. "The risk to you is high. No guarantee of survival. No guarantee her body will not reject the crude graft." Kael shrugged, though the weight in his chest pressed hard. "I'm not asking for guarantees. I'm asking for a chance." The aliens exchanged whispers, their robes whispering like dry leaves. Finally, the lead medic inclined his head. "So be it. Prepare the chamber." They moved swiftly then. Kael was stripped of his satchel, his jacket, laid onto a secondary med table beside Serenya. Cold, sterilizing mist washed over his skin, sharp with antiseptic tang. A halo of surgical drones hovered above, their lights piercing his eyes. Kael turned his head just enough to see her. Serenya's fingers twitched again, reaching weakly across the gap. He lifted his hand despite the restraints, brushing the air inches from hers. "Guess we're in this together," he murmured. Her glow flickered faintly in reply, like the first spark of star refusing to die. As the anesthesia flooded his veins, Kael's last thought before darkness was oddly calm. That in a galaxy where humans were considered reckless, crude, and stubborn, maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what made them necessary. Chapter 3, Between Gratitude and Fire. The first thing Serenya noticed when she opened her eyes was a sound. Not the cold silence she had expected beyond death, but the steady hum of the station's pulse generators. Her second realization came with the light. Her own glow, faint but no longer flickering, reflected against the glass walls of the recovery chamber. Life had returned where there should have been none. And beside her, in the cot across the sterile room, lay Kael. He was pale, sweat-soaked, but breathing. Tubes ran from his side into the fluid recycling unit. His chest rose and fell with stubborn rhythm, a human rhythm. Serenya shifted, her body still weak, the alien healers murmuring warnings in her ear. But she ignored them. Her gaze was fixed on the man who had willingly carved a piece of himself away. For her. When Kael stirred, blinking against the glow strips overhead, she leaned closer, her bioluminescence casting a soft aura over him. "Why?" The word trembled in her voice, raw with disbelief. "Why would you do this?" Kael coughed, wincing, but managed a crooked half-smile. "Because I could, and because someone had to." The healers hissed behind her, scandalized. One whispered sharply, their voice translating with icy disdain. "It is shameful, Lady Vera, to accept human tissue, crude, short-lived, tainted by imperfection. Better to pass into the ancestral light than live with this humiliation." Serenya's glow dimmed at the words. She had been raised in that belief. Nobility meant never owing, never bending, never needing. But the heat in Kael's gaze burned through the veil of tradition. He had not saved her for politics, not for advantage. He had simply chosen her life over his own comfort. "I do not feel humiliated," she said softly, her voice carrying despite its weakness. "I feel alive." The medic recoiled as though slapped. Kael's laugh was quiet, ragged. "Guess that's one for the human way of doing things." Later, when the healers left in a ripple of disapproval, Serenya remained at Kael's side. She studied his hands, scarred from tools, rough from labor, so unlike the silken digits of her own kind. "You gave me more than I can repay," she whispered, not to him alone, but to the empty air humming with machines. Kael turned his head, eyes heavy with fatigue. "You don't owe me anything. Life's worth saving, even if the galaxy says otherwise." For the first time in her existence, Serenya felt the truth of that alien stubbornness. Not pride, not tradition, just raw, reckless humanity. And it terrified her. Outside the chamber, whispers spread through the station's markets and towers. A noble saved by a human's barbaric act. Some spoke in awe, others in disgust. In the shadows, unseen eyes watched with interest and unease. For where gratitude bloomed, so too did danger. Chapter 4, Shadows in the Market. Caravelis never slept, but at night its markets glowed differently. Harsher, hungrier. Hollow signs sputtered in alien glyphs, promising everything from synthetic spices to black market weaponry. The air reeked of ozone, fried oils, and a bitter perfume distilled from some insectoid brood. Kael moved carefully through the press of bodies, his hand resting near the wrench strapped at his belt. Not a weapon, not really, but it had kept him alive more than once in the station's underlevels. Beside him, Serenya kept her hood low, her bioluminescence hidden beneath the folds of shimmering fabric. Even so, she seemed to glow faintly, the instinctive aura of her people impossible to fully disguise. "You shouldn't be here," Kael muttered, his eyes sweeping the alleys. "If half the rumors are true, you got enemies who'd rather see you buried than walking around thanks to me." Serenya's voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "If I hide, they win. My people believe I should be dead. I intend to prove that living is not shameful." Kael shot her a sideways look, half admiring, half frustrated. "That's the kind of talk that gets a target painted on your back." As if summoned, the crowd parted unnaturally, just enough for Kael to notice 3 figures slipping into the flow of bodies behind them. Mirrored masks, reflecting the neon in fractured shards. "Assassins! Don't panic," Kael whispered, pulling Serenya into a side alley where steam hissed from corroded vents. "We've got company." The assassins followed, their movements precise, almost mechanical. One drew a thin blade that shimmered like liquid mercury under the glow strips. Serenya's glow brightened in alarm, but Kael grabbed a loose pipe from the wall, wrenching it free with a grunt. He swung it experimentally, the clang echoing off the metal walls. "All right, you glass-faced bastards," he growled. "Let's see how you like a human welcome." They struck fast. One lunged low, blade flashing, but Kael sidestepped and brought the pipe down hard, sparks erupting as it clanged against the assassin's mask. The figure reeled, disoriented. Another closed in from behind. Serenya raised her hands, her bioluminescence surging into a blinding flare. The alley lit like a newborn star, dazzling the attackers for a heartbeat. Kael used the moment. He jammed the pipe into a vent grill, twisted, and released a burst of scalding steam into the narrow passage. The assassins staggered back, their mirrored masks clouding with condensation. "Move!" Kael grabbed Serenya's hand, pulling her through the fog. They ran, feet pounding against metal, the hum of the station vibrating through every panel. Only when they reached the upper balconies, overlooking the endless swirl of stars through the viewport dome, did they stop to catch breath. Serenya leaned against the railing, her glow trembling but fierce. "You fought them with a pipe?" she whispered, almost incredulous. Kael wiped blood from a shallow cut along his arm and gave a crooked smile. Human ingenuity. We make do with what we've got. For a moment, amid the neon and shadows, Serenya stared at him as if seeing something her people had never understood. A kind of strength that didn't come from tradition, but from survival itself. And in the distance, behind mirrored masks, other eyes watched still. Chapter 5. Heartbeat in Zero Gravity. The transport ship shuddered as the saboteurs triggered their charges. Lights flickered, gravity coils sputtered, and suddenly Kael and Serenya were weightless, drifting in the chaos of a dying vessel. Alarms blared in alien tones, the automated voice repeating, "Hull breach imminent. Evacuate immediately." Kael's stomach lurched as the floor fell away. There was no up, no down, only the spinning of sparks and floating shards of metal. Across the compartment, 3 masked assassins clung to the walls like insects, their blades glinting in the red emergency glow. "Stay behind me," Kael hissed, twisting his body in the disorienting drift. He braced against the console, using the rebound to launch himself toward the first attacker. The impact was brutal, 2 bodies colliding midair. Kael's wrench clanged against the assassin's mask, cracking it. The figure spun away, tumbling helplessly into the void of the cabin. But another closed in. Serenya gasped as a blade swiped toward Kael's exposed side. In that instant, instinct overrode fear. She seized Kael's wrist, her glow flaring brilliant blue. The burst of light blinded their enemy long enough for Kael to jam his boot into wall and kick, sending the assassin spiraling into a collapsing conduit. "Nice trick," Kael panted, pushing himself back to her. His cheek was bleeding, but his grin was fierce. Her glow flickered, trembling, but her voice was steady. "I won't watch you fall for me again, not without standing beside you." The last assassin steadied himself near the reactor core, blade raised. Kael scanned the console panel behind him. Half the system was fried, but one thruster command still flickered green. Humans make do, he thought grimly. "Hold tight," he said. Serenya's hand gripped his, her fingers warm against his scarred knuckles. Kael slammed the console with his free hand, overriding the safety locks. A burst of compressed air roared from a vent, sending the assassin hurtling backward into the reactor's containment field. Electricity crackled. The masked figure convulsed and went still, drifting like ash in the void. The chamber fell eerily quiet. Only the hum of emergency engines and their ragged breaths filled the silence. Kael floated, chest heaving, still clutching Serenya's hand. The faint warmth of her glow bathed his face, softer than any neon light of Caravelis. "You're bleeding," she whispered, her thumb brushing the cut along his jaw. "Why do you never let go, even when it would be easier?" His gaze locked on hers, unflinching despite the weightlessness pulling everything else apart. "Because humans don't let go, not of the ones who matter." Her glow surged, bright as starlight through glass. She pressed her forehead against his in the drifting silence. "Then know this. You gave me your life, Kael Donovan, and I give you mine." The ship trembled, tearing itself apart around them, but for a heartbeat there was only the warmth of her light and the steady rhythm of 2 very different hearts beating in unison. Chapter 6. A Human Heart, an Alien Promise. Caravelis shimmered like a jewel against the void, its segmented towers glowing in the wake of the rescued transport ship. The explosion had left debris fields drifting in orbit, but the station endured, as it always did, clinging to survival like the stubborn races who called it home. In the central atrium, beneath vaulted glass that revealed the swirl of nearby nebulae, a crowd gathered. Nobles of Serenya's caste stood in austere silence, their bioluminescence dimmed in solemn disapproval. Traders whispered, workers leaned over railings, and even the station's drones hummed idly, as though sensing the weight of the moment. Kael stood off to one side, bandages beneath his work jacket. looking more like a misplaced mechanic than a man who had saved a noble life. His palms were scarred, his expression wary. He knew what was coming. Whispers of scandal, accusations of barbarity, and perhaps worse. Humans weren't meant to interfere in alien affairs. Yet here he was, and there was no undoing it. Then Serenya stepped forward. Her glow was radiant now, no longer dim and failing but alive, pulsing like a beacon. Every head turned as she raised her chin and let her voice carry across the atrium. "I should be dead," she said simply, "by the laws of my people, by the will of tradition, by the silence of those who would not risk themselves. Yet here I stand, alive because of him." She pointed toward Kael. A ripple spread to the crowd, bioluminescent faces, shifting in disapproval, shock, even awe. "A human," Serenya continued, "who gave me not only his strength, but part of himself, who fought when all others turned away. My people call such acts crude. I call them beautiful." Kael's throat tightened as her gaze met his across the hall. For once, he didn't look away. "You may say I am dishonored," Serenya declared, her glow burning brighter. "But I say honor is nothing if it demands death in the face of love. I will live by a different measure now, not by pride, but by the stubborn courage of one human heart." The atrium buzzed with divided voices. Some shouted in outrage. Others murmured with newfound respect. But Serenya ignored them. She crossed the polished floor, every step deliberate, until she stood before Kael. Her hands, luminous and trembling, found his. She pressed his palm gently against a glow at her chest, where her heartbeat thrummed like music beneath skin. "You gave me your kidney," she whispered, her words soft yet carrying. "But it was always your heart I needed most." Kael exhaled slowly, as though releasing years of loneliness into the void. "Then it's yours." Above them, the station hummed, lights flickering as ships came and went beyond the glass dome. The galaxy would keep turning, indifferent, but for Serenya and Kael, that moment was more vast and enduring than the stars themselves. The Starship Horizon's dawn drifted in stable orbit above Caravelis, its engines humming like a heartbeat through the deck plates. Beyond the viewport stretched an ocean of alien constellations, jeweled against the black, some faint and dying, others newborn and fierce. Kael stood at the observation glass, the faint tug of artificial gravity grounding him, though his thoughts still swam. The station below buzzed with neon light and whispers of their defiance. Some called it scandal, others called it hope. For him, it was enough that she lived. Footsteps approached, soft against the alloy floor. Serenya joined him, her glow casting a halo across the glass. She stood close, their reflections side by side against the stars. For the first time, her light didn't tremble. It burned steady, strong. "You gave me life," she said quietly, her hand slipping into his. "Not just with your body, Kael Donovan, but with your belief that I was worth saving." He turned, meeting her luminous gaze. "You are, always were." Her fingers pressed his palm to her chest, where a bioluminescent glow pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "Then hear this truth. My heart belongs to you, now and always." Silence stretched, only the hum of engines, only the endless starlight. Then Kael leaned his forehead to hers, eyes closing. "Guess humanity finally found its place in the stars," he whispered. "Not by conquest, by love." Together they watched as the galaxy unfolded before them, vast, perilous, beautiful. Two different lives bound by one stubborn, impossible human choice.